Good morning, Heavy citizens, or good afternoon, evening, night, depending on when you like to watch your favorite YouTube content. And also, we're flattered, but I digress. Today, we have a special edition of Same Scene, Different Score. I'm going to be taking our piano library Ascend and tearing it down to create a brand new take on the scene from Mayar AlNouri's short film, Signal. And for this, I wanted to go a slightly different route. If you've been following the series, you'll know we always hype up the action. Maybe with Brahms, with big synth energy, with good old-fashioned rock and roll, and most recently, breathy vocals. But what if we went deep into the character's mind and tell a slightly different story? My name is Luis, and live from Heavyocity HQ, this is Same Scene, Different Score. ¡Nos fuimos! The concept was simple. How can we use this piano in a way that we can reflect that this character is not doing well, this character has had a traumatic past, and this is not about him saving the world at this point. Things are not going well for this character this time around. So the first thing that I thought was fun to do was explore using the piano as a percussion instrument. But let's just use the percussive parts of it for this. In this preset in Old Timer, basically, I brought the volume down, unloaded all of the sources, but brought the pedal noises up, as well as the resonance layers. Play any key yields this result. Added to that some punished light. And then I further mangled it using slight formant shifting and a little extra dive here. What this yields is an eerie sound that then plays along with the pedal sounds coming from the other preset, in which I did the same. Piano noises 1. Again, brought the volume down, nothing on channels 2 and 3, and then using the MIDI controllers, the sustain pedal, to trigger it. So yes, we're using rhythm to create that brooding sense of dread, which occurs from the first sound that you can hear, this bass drum created out of piano sounds, using a little of EBow and harmonics source buckets. And my main piano is from this preset, Broken Keys. It first shows up here. It's a little hint of the motif. The first big moment hits when he's gonna look at the picture of his wife and kid. I sort of decided that it means nothing great. So I brought this sound, odd feedback. So this just creates a very different emotion, whereas before we used this moment as an uplifting, kind of like driving hard behind the character's action. Now it's more of like something that's haunting him and it's driving him from a way different corner of his heart. And this is also supported by the same bass drum. So that whole moment looks like this. What's nice about this bass drum is that this kinds of sound play so different depending on where in the key range you play them. So at the beginning, it was this very low, broody thing. But played up above, but it's just now more dissonant, especially because it's playing against the other preset. Next section, he bursts out running. But at this point, we're bringing in the motif that is sort of like hinting at things not being entirely right. You'll notice that I'm using the sound that doesn't have sources loaded, but back to what I said before, it has the reso layer, which is what makes it very extra eerie plus all the processing, and I did that with also the other noises preset. So that's achieved using the Foreman shifting with Little Alter Boy, which is such a nice plugin. Little yet powerful. And another element to the eeriness is using the capabilities of Ascend to generate performances. So I went to the Echoes tab and I chose to generate a pattern using 5th and 6th, and I still played the same melody, but obviously there's going to be some dissonance because some of the notes are not going to match, and it just yields this very, very eerie result that I just brought way down in the mix. And with the other two noise layers, we want some low end here, so I brought Mosaic to come do some brooding subs for me. So what's interesting for me is that this sounds amazing with a sub, and if you don't quite hear that low end, it still sounds percussive. It's kind of like the heart beating a little too fast. And then I brought some strings, because strings, you gotta have them, man, you gotta have them. In a way, it's adding some of the undercurrent emotion, the heartbeat, the more epic, melodious chords played by the strings. And on top, we have the dissonant, resonant layer affected, Foreman shifted sound design that together creates this juxtaposition of like, he's doing something, but he's not feeling great about it. We bring the bass drum for like a nice mood setting, ominous hit, and then odd feedback. What if you added a gravity riser to the mix? It's pretty much the same style of sound coming from way different sources. So the rhythmic motif comes from the noises, which is sort of like your even tack, tack. But we still want to create a through line that allows us to connect this with the last moment. And we're having not only those ticky-tacky sounds, but we have a big brooding hit, which will help us set up the stage for a bigger, more epic moment. I made sure to add a lot of reverb and space. That way you can still feel the transient, but it's still like in the background. At this point, we have all of our main players. We have our motif. We develop it a little bit more. Chord movement here helps bring the narrative forward. That's why you see those little changes and the notes go up and higher as we climb towards this dramatic moment. We have a new bass drum. We get our eerie piano player back. You hear how the rising notes just create this sort of like stairway, which mimics the way he's just climbing up to just create this hack. But in this way of performing the score or creating the score, maybe that's not going to be as successful as in previous occasions. And another star in this moment is a very in-your-face cello sustained note. I'm using intimate and rhythmic textures here, which is what adds so much movement. I wanted to ramp this section into like that final big moment, which is still very brooding. If you notice, the tempo does not change at all in the entire piece, but it still tells a story with the way instrument and orchestration change and they're layered here and there. Here we have one important transition coming from this Damage 2 preset. And it is again accompanied by our weapon of choice, odd feedback. You may be noticing there's some gating, which I love using Tremolator and automating it. So I automate the depth and the rate mod. So for that last moment, we have all our motifs being performed by some of the different presets. We have our noises. This time they're a little bit more agitated. Then I added one more noise preset. So I tuned it up and I added a lot of reverb and it plays very nice. We have our brooding sub. Notice how this time I brought it up a couple of octaves. That way we're gonna make some space for the bottom. Found sounds, trash backbeat that comes at the end. Then our bucket clacks are back as well. We go back to our gravity riser. You get the idea. And we must not forget our motif. As you can see, I played with the rhythm of the notes to create some instability that you cannot really tell with everything that's happening, but it's those kind of details that ultimately add some element of like uneasiness. And our last element, maybe one of my favorites, is one final sound I designed using Ascent. I called it Gnarly. It's basically a muted keyboard hit with a brush sustain. You'll see that I'm also playing with the pitch bend, bringing it ever slightly down. But I did notice that the low end was a little muddy, a little too out of control. So I added some EQ. And I used Foundation's bass that we just released recently to provide a rounder, way more controlled low end. Those together sound really good. All of this epicness together So there you have it. This was so much fun to do. I took a whole different rhythm, a whole different route, a whole different way to tell the story that we're looking on screen. It's super cool to know that you can always grab the libraries that you have and see how you can deconstruct them to create something new. If you like what you see, make sure you like and subscribe. Check out Ascent, check out any of the Foundation series, go to our website, share this with your friends, family, girlfriends, boyfriends. The sky's the limit. I'll see you around, guys.